Social justice involves caring for others in love in a way that brings about a just society. Well, you know, I'm Irish originally, and I suppose in a way that is part of how I got involved, because the Irish fought for their freedom and won it.
Proclaims to the far off coasts, say he who scattered Israel will gather him.
They had a great sense of our freedom is important to us, and people had to die for it, and therefore it's to be treasured. And it was still, I mean, it was a few decades after it, but that I was born, but it was still in people's consciousness. When I came to South Africa, I was horrified. You probably never experienced this. You'd be walking in a park and you just saw you'd go sit on a bench and it said, "Net for blankets, whites only." I couldn't believe it, you know, that this really happened. And then you discovered that you couldn't go into certain parts of the train. Other people couldn't go into your part. And I mean, it just blew my mind. In Port Elizabeth and in the Catholic Church, the Vatican Council was changing things. And one of the great things to emerge from it was the Commission for Justice and Peace. And in Port Elizabeth in the very early 70s, the Justice and Peace Commission was started. And I got involved in it. I'd finished studying by then and I was teaching. Well, it's a Catholic organisation, so particularly focusing, I mean, the Anglicans and other churches have similar bodies. It's about making Christians aware of that dimension of the gospel and of the Bible. A lot of people just interpret being a good Christian as an individual thing. A simple example, they will keep the commandments, and being a good Jew as well. You know, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt, you know. But it's making them aware that it's beyond that. Maybe personally, in my family, I've never killed anyone, but Christianity is much more than that. It's saying, don't kill anyone, and if somebody's dying of hunger, then they need help, or you're killing them. So it brings out the implications, the social implications of the gospel. The same way, for example, I think people can interpret, for example, the commandment to love one another as a purely personal thing. So they will form a very loving family and will care for even extended family. But to realize, you know, my neighbor is everybody, and I must love them. And love does not mean some kind of a sentimental feeling for them. My love for them is caring for them as human beings. And sometimes that's a physical need, but sometimes it's a political need, like the liberation. Justice and charity are two good pillars to begin with. A building usually needs a few more than two pillars, but that's all right. It's interesting, they need to be mixed and mingled. Like if you want to bake a cake, you can't keep all your ingredients separate, you must put them together. So justice could become very arrogant, very even violent, very dogmatic. It's acknowledging that because love has to include everyone, then how do I, as a poor person fighting for justice, maybe a mine worker how do I show Christian love to you, all the bosses and long man minds? There is a way of bringing the two together if we're both looking for justice and we're both willing to do it in love and peace. And it applies the other way too. If love isn't and charity aren't mixed with justice, it can turn into sentimental schlop, as a little fellow used to say, that it just applies to my friends and it just applies to being nice and it just applies to patting the dog down and all that. It doesn't include looking at the hard issues and grappling with them and trying to find solutions. Justice and peace and truth and love. I think what's difficult for people is that they often see it as an add-on to their lives, and they actually don't have time or energy for add-ons. Now, one always needs to push one's boundaries and add on a little bit, but obligations to work and family often take up one's energy. So one needs to build it into one's life, and therefore, for example, try and choose a job that involves service. Now, all jobs involve service. If I'm going to be a bank manager, if I run a good bank, an honest bank, that's service to my clients. If I'm sweeping the roads, if I sweep that road nicely and greet the people who walk past, that's a joy. That's building in love and justice into my ordinary day. I think young people in many ways have a greater passion for justice than older people. Middle-aged people can get bowed down with the weights and worries of life. And I think young people have a natural instinct to want to improve the world. I would encourage young people, and with their teachers, try to find out what's your gift to the world as an individual. What can you give it? Will you be a scientist? Will you be a manager? It doesn't matter. What is your gift? And say to yourself, how can I develop that gift fully? Which means doing your homework, even. And then how can I long-term use it? So when they're talking about their careers, even in a secular situation, they could begin to think, what career can I follow, and how can that career help others? And to try and choose a career that matches my gift, because with every gift you can actually help others. So in their discernment about their lives, they can, I think it's good when in schools, as in our schools, they collect for the poor, they bring things maybe to a poor area and they meet the people, they learn to mix with other children. That's all helpful. But in terms of choice, we're all limited to who we are, and yet we're all blessed with who we are, and that's the blessing we can give to the society we live in.